welcome back to Crowning Connections. Today we are so excited to have an amazing guest with us. She has a lot to share about mental health.
Jenna is also Miss Collegiate USA 2025. So congratulations,
Thank
Jenna.
you.
She's a remarkable young lady. In fact, she's had such a successful life. We're going to have her back for another episode so we can make sure that we get all of her information out there for our listeners. Jenna, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone? Tell us a little about you.
My name's Jenna Martorana. I live in Pennsylvania, and I was recently crowned Miss Collegiate USA. I am a school counselor as well as a business owner. My platform is It's Okay to Not Be Okay.
Such empowering platform that you have and share, and I think it's so relevant with everybody nowadays. And, I think it's been a long time since mental health has been kind of coming to the forefront very, very slowly, but there's definitely been a shift over the years and over time. We'll let you just take it away.
My platform is because of my own struggles with mental health conditions. I was diagnosed as a junior in high school with depression and anxiety, but I struggled for years in silence because nobody talked about mental health. I didn't even know that depression and anxiety existed or that they were something I could have as a kid. Then it wasn't until I was 27 that I was diagnosed with ADHD. I struggled a lot. I became a school counselor because I know what it's like for kids to not feel like they have somebody that they can talk to not have someone that support system for them. I'm lucky that I did have good school counselors when I was in high school, and because of them, I was able to get the help that I needed. But I still struggled for years thinking that there was something wrong with me, letting the stigmas that surround mental health conditions hold me back. Even when it comes to pageantry, I wanted to become involved in pageants for 3 years before I actually did it. Was thinking to myself, they're always looking for people who are healthy. Well, I have these mental health conditions. I'm not considered healthy. I didn't see anybody or hear anybody that sounded like me or talked like me on stage. So when I finally worked up the courage to take that stage in 2018 at 23 years old, which is kind of late to the game for most people, I decided right then and there that I was going to be the representation that I needed, because I know that there's so many other young women and girls looking up on stage, looking for somebody that sounds like them and has had similar experiences to them. It's been my mission for the last 8 years to share my story across the country, to not only put a face to the illness and make it so that people realize that anybody can have a mental health condition, but to make sure other people realize that they're not alone in their battles. I used to think nobody understood what I was going through, when in reality, almost everybody in my life has been impacted by some sort of mental health condition. And so to make that realization can be eye-opening for people, because they don't realize how many people truly do understand what they're going through.
On that note, what do you think that the biggest misconception about mental health is in general?
What I see as a school counselor is that mental health conditions don't affect children. I've worked in both the elementary world and the middle school world, and I have dealt with suicidal ideation down to my elementary schoolers. And people don't realize that our kids are not immune to the things that are going on around them. That just because they're kids doesn't mean that they're not impacted by these same things. I grew up with a rough situation, a lot of constant fighting at home, financial issues, bullying, all from a very young age. And all of that is played a part in my own depression and anxiety. And so I see that with my students, that they're struggling with their mental health. But one of the great things is, and one of the changes that I've seen just in the past few years, is how much more willing they are to talk about mental health. I'm a Girls on the Run coach, and I am just blown away by their willingness to share their experiences, whether it's talking about their anxiety or talking about going to therapy. When I was in high school, we wouldn't have even talked about that, let alone elementary school. And these kids are so willing to ask for help and to accept help that it just gives me so much hope that we're on the right track to ending the stigma that surrounds mental health conditions. I think the biggest thing that comes into place with our kiddos is, while they don't feel the stigmas, they feel the impacts of them, because their parents, some are around my age, some older than me, they still very much see mental health as a bad thing, as something that we don't talk about. And so because of that, they don't get the help that they need, whether that be therapy or being allowed to participate in a small group with a counselor, or wanting to have their kids on medication. And so the kids are the ones then who face the negative impacts of that stigma because they're not able to get the help that they need.
It is so true.
So, do you see the difference between boys versus girls? And I ask that because you were saying about how you were diagnosed with ADHD, and that's something that I was recently diagnosed with as an adult, which is kind of crazy. But I realized a lot of the things that I felt when I was younger were a result of my ADHD, but it was masked as something else. It was masked as depression or anxiety or those kinds of things. So, being a school counselor, do you see there's more preference for boys to get help in some regard versus the girls, and the girls are just kind of like brushed underneath the rug?
I've had that in my own life. My older brother was diagnosed with ADHD in elementary school, and I had to struggle for years before getting that diagnosis. And it was difficult for me to even find a provider that was willing to talk to me about this possible diagnosis. With my students, I do think it is better. I will say that I do have more boy students that are diagnosed with ADHD than girls. But I think that there has definitely been a shift in the way educators see ADHD. They are a lot more aware of how it presents differently in boys and girls. ADHD can be either a hyperactive, inattentive, or a combination of the two. And boys typically present as the hyperactive type, whereas girls are more of the inattentive type. And that is where that anxiety comes in, that constant thought process going in their head. But because the teachers don't notice that, it doesn't get picked up on as much. But I do think educators are a lot more aware of that. And so because of that, we're able to get girls help that they need. I do think you mentioned about whether boys or girls are more likely to reach out for help. Probably girls are more likely to come down and see the counselor than boys. But when I do work with my boys, they don't seem to have that, at least yet, that shame that many young men experience when it comes to talking about mental health. My kiddos, they'll come down. They don't seem to have any shame when it comes to talking about what they're going through or crying in front of me. I mean, sometimes they're just happy to come down to play with the fidgets. But it's been amazing to see that shift. I mean, I graduated high school in 2013, and just to see in the last 12 years where we were to where we are now, it warms my heart to know that we're on the right track.
I love that. And, I've got several members of my own family that have been diagnosed with ADHD. And I can remember when one of my little guys, we took him to the doctor, and the doctor said, it's the best way that I can describe it for someone that doesn't understand this illness is you are taking one person, putting them in a room with 100 different TVs, each on full blast and all on a different channel. And so that's what you're asking them to be able to concentrate on.
I always say I feel like I have 20 tabs open in my head. Just an example of like how things are from when I was in school to now. I'm short. I'm only 4'10". I was only 20 some pounds in kindergarten, for example. I wore toddler clothes until second grade. So I was tiny and my feet never reached the ground, and they made me put my feet on phone books or stool because they said me swinging my feet was a distraction to the other kids. Now, I started kindergarten in 2000. So fast forward to today, our kids have all the flexible seating options in the world. They want to stand, fine. We'll put you in the back of the room. You can stand at your desk. You want to sit on a ball and bounce, totally fine. You need a band to use for your feet to kick at, totally fine. And so that's something that I think is such a huge shift in how kids learn. And it's been great to see people be more accepting, and educators as a whole be more accepting to what kids need and meeting them where they're at.
And I know, like my kids, for instance, with the fidget toys, they love to see which is the latest and greatest one that's out there, and they have to
Oh,
try
yeah.
it. Like it's funny. They're like, "Oh, mommy, you can sit at your desk, and here's one for you to try." I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
no."
Yeah,
I do
I have one of those
sometimes.
like those like squishy cube things. My mom took it to work. I was like, whatever, I've got three others. And it's funny to like see that. Those are like my middle schoolers' favorite things, and my mom likes them too. So it's funny to see that.
They're definitely popular these days.
Oh yeah.
And mine have had a few of them too. Very impressive. You have authored 3 mental health focused children's books. Can you tell us a little about that and what inspired you to do that?
Yes, so I published my first book, Pearl's Purpose, in 2022, and the story is a little bit of a reflection of my own journey with mental health. Pearl starts off as this happy-go-lucky little girl that loves to make people laugh and just wants to be silly, but then she starts to not feel like herself. She doesn't want to hang out with her friends. She doesn't enjoy the things that she once enjoyed, and her teacher notices this change in Pearl, and that teacher is actually named after my Spanish teacher who noticed I was struggling with my mental health in high school. And because of her, I got the help that I needed. The teacher reaches out to the school counselor in the book, Ms. Hope, who calls her down, and they talk about how lots of kids all over the world feel this way. So you're not alone. There's nothing you did wrong that made your brain hurt, but there's things we can do to help it feel better. And they talk about what coping strategies are and how to use them. And they talk about ways that you can take care of your mental health by getting enough sleep, by staying active, by fueling your body with the food that it needs to keep you running. And Ms. Hope tells her to keep in mind that it's okay to not be okay all the time. And Pearl decides that it's going to be her purpose to spread that message with others. And so it's definitely a reflection of my own journey. Luckily, Pearl was diagnosed at a much younger age than me, but because of that help, she was able to become the advocate that she is. My second book is called Pearl's Person, and it talks to kids about grief. I have seen firsthand how this is a topic that impacts kids so often, and it's not talked about until they're experiencing it. And at that point, the adults in their life, their parents, their guardians, they're usually experiencing grief too, and they're not in the place to try and have that discussion with kids. So to create a book that can be used as a tool to talk about grief ahead of time, whether it's losing a loved one, losing a pet, or even losing out on an experience, it's something that we can talk to them about and that they can understand how to deal with before they're actually experiencing it. And then my most recent book that I published this year is actually called If You Give a Pageant Queen a Crown. And it's a little bit of a play on the book If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, typical counselor brain. And it talks about all the things that queens can do once you give them a crown, the opportunity to share their voice, to use their voice to make a difference, to empower other girls to take the stage or to succeed in whatever they do, to be a mentor to them. And so while it's not mental health specific, it does encourage girls to find their passion and use their voice to make a difference in their communities. And it's been really cool to see that queens from around the country connect with that book and to love it as much as I did.
That's amazing. Those are three fabulous stories. And thank you for sharing your the topics and a little bit about the books with us. So we definitely now I want to go add them. Where can you
Me
find
too.
them?
Yes.
Amazon or
They're available on Amazon as well as my website, sparklingdesignsandgifts.com.
can you talk about your website a little bit too and what you're
Yes,
doing with that?
so I started Sparkling Designs and Gifts in 2017. Originally, I was making things for baton twirlers because that is what I used to be. I started twirling when I was 4, but then when I started competing in pageants, it shifted to pageant items. So I create customized items for pageant queens around the country and actually around the world. So everything from jackets with their titles on them, to phone cases, to crown boxes, to drawings of them in their gowns. And it's really been amazing to see this business grow from 2018 to now and to see all the different products that I've expanded to. But my favorite thing is seeing girls use my items or wear my items, whether it be at appearances or during pageant week or just out and about, because I know that they're creating such special memories in these items that they're going to be able to hold on to long after they put the crown up on the shelf. And so it just makes me so happy to see them. And it's been an honor to have been able to make things for queens such as Miss America, Miss America's Teen, Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and to know that these girls who have worked so hard for these titles are wearing or using my stuff to represent their titles with pride.
That's amazing.
I'm like sitting here speechless, like you've accomplished so much. And that's that I don't know, that's amazing and good for
Thank
you.
you.
So how do you think, Jenna, your personal experience with your own mental health battles, how do you think that that has enhanced your mission to go out and do all of these things and advocate for your platform and just, be able to reach so many different people like you obviously are.
I will be celebrating 10 years in September since my last suicide attempt, and I'm a five-time suicide attempt survivor. And I fully believe that I'm still here today to make a difference, to use my voice for those who need to hear it and for those who don't feel that they've been heard. And so, even with everything that I do, as stressful as it can be sometimes, I'm fueled by thinking about younger Jenna, who would be in absolute awe of all that I've accomplished in those 10 years. I mean, I didn't even think I would graduate high school. I didn't think I'd live long enough to graduate high school. And here I am with 2 degrees, running a business now as a national title holder and a children's book author and a school counselor. Like, what? I would have, if you had told me that, there would have been no way I would have believed you. I mean, I spent time my senior year of high school in outpatient therapy. Like, the fact that this is where I am today would have been, I would not have believed you if you told me that. And that's exactly why I do what I do, because I know I needed to see that hope existed, that recovery was possible when I was in my darkest moments. And sometimes I feel like I've shared my story so many times, who could possibly still need to hear it, but there's always somebody out there that hasn't heard it before. And you never know when that one person, when that story could be that connection that somebody needs to remind them to keep going, to keep fighting, that it does get better. And so I've been able to partner a lot with the National Alliance on Mental Illness to share my story. I've partnered with them as an Ending the Silence school presenter, where I go in and talk to middle school and high school students about mental health and educate them on the realities of mental health conditions and talk about what resources are available to them. I've also been able to be an In Our Own Voices presenter, where I go out into the community and talk to usually adults about my lived experience with mental health. But one of my favorite things is being able to record my story with NAMI that they're able to use in their marketing materials nationwide. And that was a huge goal of mine. And I thought that I needed to have some big title to be important enough for my story to be important enough to share that. I recorded that probably 2021, 2022. The fact that here I am at that point, just a local title holder, and that they thought my story was important enough to share was a reminder that you don't need a big crown or a big title or any title to make a difference. You just need to have the courage to use your voice and share your story.
I'm never speechless, but I am just wow.
So we keep saying it's hard because being working in the schools as well, we have often the same days and everything. But my mom keeps saying we need to go down and see Senora Simmons. You need to give her a copy of your book. Like, there, I had her for 3 years, I believe. I took Spanish 5 years total, so I had her for my sophomore, junior, and senior year. So she knows me well. But the fact that she has no idea what I've accomplished since graduating high school, and I know as an educator how important and impactful that can be when a former student comes back and talks about the difference that you make to them. So my goal is to eventually go back. I would love to be able to share that with her. Hopefully there's a day when I'm not in school and she is, and I can surprise her, because I just know that that will make her whole day to know that she had that impact on a student, and everything that I've been able to accomplish since then is because she noticed I was struggling and she took action. And that's something that when I talk to educators, when I go into schools or go to universities to talk about, is I share that story, because our kids are at school for a majority of the day, whether it be with teachers or coaches, and they are the ones that might be the only ones who notice that change in their kiddo. Especially, let's be real, with middle school and high school students, they don't want anything to do with their parents.
Nope.
And so it's important to have those people in our students' lives be aware of mental health conditions, of the warning signs, and to have the confidence to speak up and reach out to their parents or their guardians when they see a child struggling, because they might be the only person who notices that and is able to get them the help that they need.
So, what would you say to a young girl or a boy that is struggling with mental health issues or confidence? What would you say to them?
I think one of the most important things, and something that I needed to know, is that I wasn't alone. Throughout my graduate program, it was mostly focused on the more mental health counselor side of things and the school counselor, and that's just how the university had the program. But it was very often said to keep self-disclosure at a minimum, only use that on an occasional basis to build rapport with your clients. And maybe it's different in the private sector, but working in schools, kids want to know. Kids can tell absolutely if you are being authentic with them, if you really do understand what they're going through. And so I am not above sharing some of the details of my own journey with them. And even with parents, the amount of times that I've had a kiddo or a parent say, wow, I didn't realize you could accomplish all of that with ADHD or that with depression or anxiety. And that's exactly why I do what I do, because there is that stigma that still surrounds mental health conditions. And people do think, oh, you can't accomplish anything or you won't amount to much if you have ADHD, for example. And to be that proof to, here I am helping your kiddo get the help that they need and having the same experience, it's eye-opening to some parents because they truly do not realize that their child can go on to live a fulfilling and successful life. And so I am proud to share my story with my kids, and to see them connect with me is just a beautiful thing. And I've been a long-term sub now with 3 different school districts here in Berks County. And when I see my kiddos out and about, or I just saw a bunch of them at a parade the other day, it's so cool to know that I might have only been with them for a year or half a year, but they remember me and they are still wanting to spend time with me and talk to me.
I just think you just have such a light about you. I always use the analogy that, everybody can be like a lighthouse and that you're shining
Mhm.
light for others to come safely to shore into the harbor. And I think you definitely define that and even probably go above and beyond that. So kudos to you.
Thank
With
you. I
everything that
love
you've
that
been through,
analogy.
everything that you have been through, and yet you're so positive. So on the flip side of things, ADHD you can get burnout. You can be the extrovert or the introverted extrovert and or the
That's what
extroverted
I always
introvert.
say I am.
Yeah. So how do you balance that with, self-care for yourself? What do you do to kind of step away and be like, okay, I need to recharge my battery so that way I can be present for my kids tomorrow. What do you do for that?
Yeah, so I will say that one of the benefits of going so long without being diagnosed is I know how to manage it. And so do I know what works for me, what helps me recharge, and what fulfills me. And some of that really is doing the advocacy work that I do. While yes, it is work, it is what fills my bucket to know that I'm making a difference and that I'm inspiring other people. But between being a counselor, running a business, and now being a national title holder, there are days where I just need to say, hey, I need a break today. I just can't do it. And so I really try to be deliberate in how I plan out my schedule, whether it be scheduling events or whether it be what days I'm working on these types of orders. I know what I need to do to manage my ADHD as well as to manage not getting burnout, because what I do is so important. And if I'm not showing up fully for my kids, then nobody is benefiting from that. It's definitely been, depending on what school I'm at, it fulfills me a lot more than others. There's some districts that just really understand the need for mental health services, and you have the ability to help the kids in ways that some other districts might not understand. And so that does play a huge part in it. But it's just every day making sure I'm doing what I need to do, whether that be getting enough sleep or taking my medication, or I like to finish every day by taking like an hour-long bathtub soak. I mean, that's what I enjoy. And well, yes, I'll probably be sitting there working on designs or creating content. Those are the things that, well, I know some people are so stressed about social media, but for me, that's one of my favorite things to do is to create content. And so I'm lucky that some of the things that other people see as work, I see as fun and fulfilling to do.
And they're obviously great creative outlets for you.
Yes. I'm definitely a creative person. I was always a crafty child. My mom would drag me along to my brother and my cousin's soapbox derby races. And that's the last place I wanted to be at 7 o'clock in the morning. But she'd be there with my big Rubbermaid bin full of craft supplies. I'd be there making bracelets, painting piggy banks, doing whatever. And so it's no surprise I ended up creating a crafting business from it. But yeah, so it's like finding those things that I enjoy and that fulfill me and continuing to do them.
With your students, because creativity is a balance and it's something that we all need no matter our age, no matter, whatever. How do you how do you encourage your students to remain in that creative space so that way they can hopefully have that outlet, whether it's writing poetry or, painting or, you know, drawing, making bracelets, how do you help them or what do you suggest for them to do?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things to do is classroom lessons. I love going in and teaching kids about social emotional learning and how they can take care of their mental health. And one of my favorite topics is talking about self-care with them. Now, that's a term that is thrown around all the time, so most of them have heard of it in some form or another, but they don't necessarily understand what falls under the realm of self-care. And that there's so many different things out there and that what works for some people doesn't work for others. My favorite example is I like to tell them my best friend, she's also a pageant queen, but she is a personal trainer and she loves to be active and go for runs and work out. And I tell my kids, if you see me running, you guys better run too, because I'm not running for anything. I'm like, I'm more than happy to take a nap or to sit on in my bed and flip through TikTok. And if that's what works for me, that's fine because self-care is unique to the individual. And so we talk about what different forms of self-care are. We talk about ones that we can use at school versus ones we can do at home, like playing video games. Obviously, that's going to be an at-home activity. But asking your teacher if I can go for a walk to cool down or to go get a drink of water, that's something you can do here at school. And so it's really important to help kids find those things from a young age because it's not necessarily something that they are going to just know how to do. It's a skill that needs to be taught, and they need to be taught how and when to use it appropriately. But it's something that is going to benefit them for the rest of their lives, for them to understand what fulfills them, what helps them recharge their batteries. I mean, I can only imagine how much different our lives would have been if we had learned about that at a younger age instead of, I feel like my generation especially was always, everything is all about schoolwork, all about doing as much as you possibly can to get into a good college and all that jazz. And so I think that kids having these skills at a much younger age is really going to benefit them in the long term.
I know you were talking about how the title helps you with your platform, with your advocating for your many, many different causes that you work for. But can you take us back to the moment that you were crowned Miss Collegiate
Yeah.
USA?
So that was just a little over a week ago in Washington, D.C. This was actually my third year competing with the Miss Collegiate USA organization. I competed the past 2 years as a Miss, and then during nationals last year on stage, they announced that they were adding a Ms. division. And I thought, here, this is my last year. I'm aging out. I guess this will be the end for me. And then as soon as we finished crowning, was fourth runner-up for the second year in a row. And as soon as we finished everything, I walked over to my director, Kia, and said, I'll be back next year. And when I heard my name called, you can see the shock on my face. But what I love even more is seeing the happiness on the other queens behind me face. I think that is a true testament to who a person is behind the scenes, is to watch how other people react. But I just keep watching that video and thinking to myself, it hasn't even, I feel like, sunk in yet that I actually did it, that the third time's the charm. And afterwards, we have a junior high, a high school, a Ms. and a Miss Collegiate USA. And we'll be adding a Mrs. for the 2026 year for anybody who's interested. Little shameless plug there. But after I was crowned, I walked back, and while they were crowning our Miss Collegiate USA, I just kept repeating to myself, I did it. I actually did it. And I was just still so in shock to have finally heard my name be called and to know that all the hard work and dedication I'd put in over the past 3 years had finally led me to this moment.
And you never quit. I think that's such an important lesson, is that sometimes it's not about winning the crown at that moment. It's about your journey. Look at your journey and the steps that you took to get there, and now it's your time. It's so exciting to think about what you're going to do with this reign this year. You already know I follow you. We follow you, but I'm going to really be following closely. I just think you're just such an inspiration, Jenna, to so many people.
Thank
And
you.
thinking about where this will go for you now, you have this new national title. I can't wait to see where you take that.
Thank you. I have so many exciting plans. One of the things that I told the judges was that for me, something that I tell girls that I mentor is the best way to prepare for the title is to act and serve as if you already have it. And so for me, I've been serving as if I had the national title, and I've already created a 12-month plan that I got to share with the judges. And so it was kind of surreal coming home from nationals. Luckily, it was only like a 2.5 hour drive, but I was already there on my phone making a list and editing my list of appearances and parades and things so that I could start making an impact right off the bat. It still is so surreal to me that I'm finally here and finally doing what I've been hoping to do for the past couple years. But I'm just going to enjoy every moment that I have with this title and to leave a legacy of having created as much change and positivity as I possibly can during my year of service.
Love it. Look, we both are just shaking our head. So what do you think looking forward a little bit? I know this is brand new title for you, but moving forward, where do you see yourself going when you crown your successor?
I don't know. I think my mom's hoping that I'll be done with pageants, but I don't know if I'll be done yet. I'd always said I would never be a Ms. because it made me feel old. But for the Miss Collegiate USA organization, Ms. is more based on your education status than age. It is 25 to 40, which I'm 30, so I do fit in there, but you have to have either be obtaining or have already attained some sort of doctorate or graduate program. And so I do my master's degree to be a school counselor. So I said that made me feel less old, that it was based on educational status than age. But I don't know where I'm going next. I have professors who really think I should pursue a doctorate. I don't know about that. I'm not a research girly, but I love exploring new opportunities. And I think that this crown is just going to open up so many more opportunities for my future.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. Like I said, you just have this positive attitude and light about you, and that draws people in. It draws people to you. People want to do better because they get to know you. So I think your story is far from over. I think you have so much more. We definitely are going to be following you, and definitely, keep in touch. And you already have my wheel spinning on certain
I
things.
know.
So so I definitely think there's going to be more of you seen on Crowning Connections than just this episode. So hopefully
Yes,
For
you
sure.
will
definitely.
hopefully you will come along for the ride.
Yes, definitely. I love being able to share my story with you guys.
It's amazing. I really am truly in awe. And like Lindy, my wheels are already spinning forward thinking about this. For today's episode, if you could leave one message for our listeners or tell them one thing that you would want them to know, what would that be?
Something that I really try to stress, whether it be to my students, to other pageant queens, or just anybody in general, is to remember that it's okay to be who you are. Like I said earlier in the podcast, I really struggled with thinking that I needed to be a certain way or look a certain way, act a certain way to succeed in life. And I've found that it's the opposite. It was when I was true to myself that not only did I walk home with the crown, but that I felt the most confident because I knew that what I was showing the judges is how I come across on an everyday basis to my students, to my friends. And when you are 100% yourself, then you know that the judges are choosing you for you, or that people are wanting to be around you for who you are. And so, not to let all of the things that we hear about or see on social media, in the news, change who you are. I know it's like the most cliche thing when you talk to people in pageants, so just be who you are. But it really does matter, and it really is the truth, because the judges want to see who you are and they want to get to know you for you, because this is your year as insert title. It's not whoever came before you. And so to make it your year or your time, you need to show the judges who you are.
I love that.
Is there a quote or something too that, has always spoken to you that you always refer back to, or, something it's inspiring on those lines for yourself, not your advice you're giving to others, but for yourself?
I really love the quote. I forget who the author was or who it originally wrote said the quote, but it's something about that you never know when your story will become somebody else's roadmap or instruction guide. That's something that I keep in mind with myself a lot, that sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I've told this story so many times, I'm tired of hearing myself say it. And sometimes I feel like I even forget parts because it's just becomes so mundane for me to say it all the time. But I know that there were people out there who needed to hear that. And I know that if it was 16, 17-year-old Jenna hearing somebody come in and talk about their experiences, that would have made such an impact on my life. And so on the days that it is harder or that I don't feel like necessarily doing it, I keep that quote in mind to really inspire me to keep going, because there are people who need to hear that story and who need to hear that hope and recovery are possible.
I hope that you will be willing to come back for
Of
another
course,
episode.
yes.
This is amazing. I have learned so much. I mean, really so much just listening to you today. And I'm so inspired by your mission, by your story, your personal story, and how you have taken your own, your own personal mental health struggles, and you have turned that into something positive that is making an impact on the lives of so many other people, from your students to, who knows, contestants. And now, you don't know who's gonna need to hear Jenna's words on this episode today. I
Exactly.
love that, Jenna. You're truly an inspiration to so many
Thank you.
people.
This light, that fire that's within you, and how bright it's burning. You're just amazing. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to share my story with people, because, like we said, who knows who needs to hear it?
That's right. That's right. And guys, our listeners, that's what this podcast is all about. It's about not just about our stories, it's about your stories. And we want you to reach out to us. I'm sure Jenna has. We'll make sure she gets all of her links over to us so we can share all of that with you. And you're going to want to stay tuned, because you've heard her say herself, she'll come back on, and you're not going to want to miss that episode either. But we would just like to thank every one of you for your support, for tuning in today, and being such loyal followers of Crowning Connections. It means everything to Lindy and I. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. All right, guys, until next time, we are signing off on this episode of Crowning Connections. And thanks so much. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Lindy, as always. And we will see you next week.